Welcome to Unusual Daily Life, History for Sleep. Thank you for joining us tonight, whether you're here to relax, to rest, or simply to drift into a quieter time. We're glad you've come. Each week, we journey into the rhythms of the past, exploring real moments in everyday history, one peaceful day at a time. If you enjoy these calming stories, we invite you to subscribe and join us again for new episodes every week. Tonight, we travel far north, to the rugged shores and quiet fjords of early medieval Iceland. The year is around 800 AD, a land of volcanic stone, biting wind, and slow-growing moss. A place where Norse settlers have only recently begun carving out lives, homes, and farms from the wilderness. You are one of them, a humble Viking farmer living in a turf-roofed longhouse near the sea. Your days are shaped by the rhythm of weather and season, the wool from your sheep, the peat you burn for warmth, the stew you simmer over the hearth. These are the steady threads of your life. Tonight, we'll follow one full day in your world, from the early stirrings before sunrise to the quiet hours beneath the stars. We'll walk gently through your routine, slow, grounded, and rooted in a time long before ours. So take a breath, get comfortable, and let the sounds of history carry you softly into sleep. You wake before the sun rises, the air in the longhouse still cool and damp from the night. The stone hearth at the center of the room has burned low, but the faint warmth of last evening's peat fire lingers just enough to keep the morning frost at bay. Overhead, the low ceiling is dark with soot, and the heavy scent of smoke hangs in the stillness. You blink your eyes open beneath a heavy woolen blanket, rough against your skin but comforting in its weight. All around you, the quiet of early dawn is broken only by the soft, steady breathing of your kin still curled on the raised sleeping platforms nearby. You sit up slowly, careful not to disturb the others. Your woolen tunic, neatly folded beside your cot, is scratchy but dry, spun last spring from the fleeces of your own sheep and dyed a faint earthy brown with lichen gathered from the hills. You pull it over your head and feel the air nip at your ankles. On the packed earthen floor, your sealskin boots wait patiently. You slip into them and make your way quietly toward the hearth, where you crouch to coax the embers back to life. With practiced hands, you feed in a twist of dry birch bark and a few finger-thick twigs, blowing gently until the fire crackles softly and throws its first orange glow against the turf walls. A low grumble comes from the adjoining byre. Beyond the partition, your sheep rustle in their straw, and one of the cows lets out a gentle huff. The animals are sheltered under the same roof during the cold months, their body heat warming the space just enough to keep the chill from biting too deep. You pause for a moment and listen, a drip of melted frost from the turf roof, the creak of timber settling, a raven calling in the distance, echoed by the far-off bleat of a goat. The world is beginning to wake. You take up a carved wooden ladle and dip into a clay vessel near the hearth, drinking a few mouthfuls of sour whey left from the cheese-making a day earlier. It's sharp, almost vinegary, but fills your belly just enough to give you the strength to start your morning. You tear off a piece of dense barley bread, baked yesterday in the stone-lined hearth, and chew slowly. The crust hard and dark from the coals, the inside dense and earthy. There is a bit of skyer too, cool and tangy from the storage pit just outside, and a smear of wild berry jam, preserved from the summer harvest. You rise, wiping your hands on a wool cloth, and lift the wooden latch to the outer door. The cold strikes your cheeks immediately, crisp and bracing. A veil of mist hangs low over the fjord beyond, turning the world pale and quiet. The earth is still frozen, the grass brittle underfoot. You step outside into the morning hush, breath blooming in little clouds. The sea glints faintly in the distance, steel gray and rippling, while a line of snow-dusted hills forms the horizon. Somewhere beyond them lies a world you've never seen. Foreign kings, great halls, sunlit fields. But here, the rhythms of home are enough. You head to the well first, its stone rim frosted but firm. With effort, you pull up the wooden bucket and splash your face with the icy water. It stings awake every nerve. Then you carry the brimming pail to the byre entrance and unlatch the wooden door. A soft wave of warmth meets you. The smell of straw and hide, milk and dung, familiar and grounding. The animals nudge you as you move among them, sheep pressing close, the old cow lowing softly. You distribute the remaining hay from the loft above, tossing it in measured armfuls. The goats bleat their impatience, tugging at your tunic as you pass. You scratch one behind the ears before moving on. A clutch of hens waits in the corner. You reach into the nesting box and find 3 eggs, still warm from the straw. You cradle them in your palm like treasures, careful not to jostle them. These will go to the morning pot, perhaps stirred into a barley mash or eaten with salt if any remains from the last coastal trade. You make a mental note to check the stores later and to ask your neighbor Torvi if he has any dried fish left to barter for wool. Back inside, the longhouse is slowly stirring. Your wife hums softly as she adds peat to the fire. A child stretches beneath their blanket. The air fills with the scent of smoke and warm milk. You pass her the eggs without a word and settle onto the low bench by the hearth. The day will be long, filled with fieldwork and repairs, with visits and small labors, with wool and wood and weather. But in this moment, there is only the hearth, the steam curling from the pot, and the slow, steady promise of another day unfolding beyond the mist. The morning light grows stronger now, pale and diffused through the heavy mist. Outside the longhouse, the sky is a soft blanket of grey, and the air tastes of sea salt and wood smoke. You shoulder a rough woven cloak and step out into the chill once more, your breath mingling with the steam rising off the land. As the sun slowly warms the frost, your first task is waiting. The field fence, knocked loose in the last storm, leans precariously near the edge of the grazing paddock. You gather your tools. A mallet carved from driftwood, a pouch of iron nails hammered at last summer's thing, a length of coiled rope. The posts are rough-hewn pine, worn from years of wind and snow. You kneel into the damp earth, steadying one with your shoulder as you drive in a new stake beside it. The rhythmic thud of the mallet echoes across the land, a steady beat in the silence. Far off, a gull cries, wheeling over the fjord. The soil here is poor and thin, a patchwork of moss and hardy grass laid over basalt rock. Still, you coax what you can from it. Barley and rye in the flatter patches, turnips and wild herbs in the stone-framed garden. Beside the field lies the peat stack, bricks cut last autumn from the bog and now drying slowly in the cold air. You kneel and check the top layers, brushing your hand across their surface. Dry to the touch, light in the palm, nearly ready. They'll burn longer than wood and smoke more, but they keep the hearth fed through winter. From the edge of the path, you check your snares, loops of gut tied to bent hazel twigs, set for rabbit or ptarmigan. One has been sprung, the twig snapped, but nothing caught. The other still holds firm, bait untouched. You reset them carefully and whisper a small blessing, not a prayer exactly, but a habit, an old rhythm passed down like the craft itself. To take from the land is to respect it. To eat is to honor the cycle. As midday approaches, you make your way down the stony path toward your neighbor's stead. The walk is quiet, save for the crunch of gravel beneath your boots and the distant lowing of cattle. The fjord stretches out beside you, long and still, reflecting the overcast sky like glass. Seaweed clings to the rocky shore, the tide low. You pass moss-covered stones where ravens perch, their black eyes watching silently as you move along. Torvi's longhouse sits low to the ground, its turf roof blending into the hillside as though grown there. He meets you at the door, hand raised in quiet greeting. His wife offers you a small horn cup of fermented milk, and you take it with a nod. Inside, the air smells of fish and smoke, and the floor is strewn with red mats. You trade a bundle of your thick wool, dyed with alder bark, deep brown and soft, for a length of dried cod, stiff and salted from the sea wind. It will keep 4 months, tucked into the larder beneath your hearth. As you linger, the two of you speak in low tones, of weather, of fence repairs, of a cousin headed south to trade at the Althing, of dreams and omens, of a light seen dancing above the northern sky 2 nights ago. Not fearfully, but with wonder. You've lived your whole life in this valley, yet the land always has something new to show you. Back at your own farmstead, the smell of stew meets you before you even enter. The iron pot hangs from its hook above the flames, steam wafting up into the thatch. Inside, you see chunks of dried lamb softened in the broth. A sprig of angelica floats on top, green and bright. You stir it slowly, breathing deep. Each motion is slow and practiced, the rhythm of many years. While the stew simmers, you set about carving. A small tool handle this time, cut from a birch branch and smoothed with a slate scraper. You work it with care, whittling away thin curls of pale wood. It's not fine art, but it's useful, and that is its own beauty. Across the room, your son is shaping a bone needle under his mother's watchful eye. He pauses now and then to glance at you, mirroring the angle of your knife, the patience of your hand. You sit to eat by the hearth. The stew is thick and hot, ladled into a wooden bowl carved with your family's mark. You dip a wedge of barley bread into the broth and chew slowly. No one rushes at all. Meals are quiet, a time to rest, to share warmth. The flicker of firelight catches on the iron pot, on the damp sheen of clay cups, on the woven reed mat underfoot. Outside, the wind shifts, brushing the turf roof like a hand smoothing down a blanket. There is more work to come. Ropes to mend, tools to sharpen, a calf that's due in a fortnight. But for now, the stillness of the midday fire and the fullness of the meal settle over you like a blessing. You lean back against the wooden bench, your limbs heavy with the contentment of honest labor, and watch the flames dance in the hearth. The day continues, but in this moment, you are exactly where you are meant to be. The sun is low now, casting a slanted orange light across the valley. Its rays stretch through the mist, catching the tops of distant ridges and reflecting faintly off the fjord like fire and water. The wind has stilled, and with it, a quiet settles over the land. You step outside once more, a bundle of dry kindling under your arm. The light crunch of your boots on the frosty grass is the only sound for a moment, aside from the occasional distant call of a seabird returning to its roost. You pause to check on the animals again. The sheep are already beginning to cluster near the longhouse wall, instinctively seeking its shelter for the coming night. One of the goats stands on a stone, looking out over the slope, her breath visible in the fading light. You toss her a handful of grain, which she accepts, with a short, satisfied snort. The others follow. You lead them gently inside the byre, closing the wooden partition with a soft thud. They'll be safe and warm, their breath mingling with the smells of straw and peat. Inside, the longhouse is dim and golden with lamplight. The hearth has been fed, and the fire now crackles cheerfully in the center of the room. Shadows flicker on the soot-stained beams, and the smoke curls slowly upward toward the smoke hole above. The smell of lamb stew still lingers faintly, joined now by the warm, sweet scent of rye flatbread crisping on a hot stone. Your daughter hums as she brushes oil onto the bread with a sprig of pine, her small hands steady, her cheeks ruddy from the heat. You sit near the fire, your body sinking gratefully into the carved wooden bench lined with a fleece. The day's labor has left your muscles heavy, but not unpleasantly so. The good ache of honest work. You take up your carving knife again and begin working on a small charm. A smooth bit of driftwood shaped into a rune symbol for protection. The motion is repetitive, soothing. The scraping of blade onward blends with the soft background of conversation and fire. Across the hearth, your eldest son is mending a fishing net with practiced fingers. He knots the twine carefully, threading each loop just as he was taught. Your wife spins wool from the day's shearing, the spindle turning slowly in her lap. Her feet are bare on the fur-lined floor, tapping in rhythm. Nearby, your youngest child cradles a carved wooden toy, a little horse with runes scratched into its sides, and makes it gallop softly across the bench, careful not to make too much noise. As twilight deepens, the stories begin. Your brother, visiting from the next farm over, leans forward and begins to speak. His voice is low and steady, the kind made for telling tales. He speaks of Thor's mighty hammer, of frost giants in distant mountains, of the trickster god Loki and his many mischiefs. The children lean close, their eyes wide, though they've heard these stories before. That's part of the comfort, the repetition, the knowing what comes next. You've heard them, too, since you were small, nestled in your father's lap before this same hearth. The flicker of firelight dances on the faces of those around you. The elder of the family, your mother's brother, nods occasionally as the tale winds on. His hands are folded over a cane carved long ago, worn smooth by use. He does not speak often, but his presence is felt, a quiet pillar in the corner of the room. Now and then he lifts his eyes to the smoke hole above, as if tracking something beyond the visible world. The meal is simple tonight, but warm and filling. A second helping of stew ladled from the hearth pot, more bread with a smear of rendered fat, and a handful of dried berries from a clay jar. The bowls are passed with care, hands moving slowly, respectfully. Eating is still a sacred thing, even in times of plenty. You chew in silence, watching the sparks rise from the fire, and feel the weight of the day ease from your shoulders. Someone brings out a small harp, a lyre carved from horn and pine. Its notes are soft, slightly uneven, but beautiful. A lullaby, perhaps, or an old hymn to Freya. The music settles gently over the room, like a woolen shawl laid across weary shoulders. Even the animals seem to quiet, the longhouse holding its breath in peace. Outside, the sky has darkened to a velvet blue. The mist has lifted, and a few stars now twinkle faintly above the hills. You step out briefly, just to breathe the cold air, to look up at the world. The fjord glows dimly in the starlight, the peaks around it forming dark silhouettes against the sky. No sound now but the crackle of fire inside and the distant rustle of trees. You return indoors, closing the heavy door behind you. The warmth welcomes you like an old friend. The flickering fire, the quiet breaths of your family, the smell of wool and wood smoke. The longhouse has drawn itself inward now, like a great beast settling for sleep. And you, too, begin to settle. The light has faded, the work is done, the stories are told, the night has come. Night settles fully now, thick and hushed, like wool pulled over the land. The longhouse glows faintly from within, a single flame dancing in the hearth, casting slow-moving shadows across the turf walls. Most of the family is already bedded down, layered beneath heavy woolen blankets and fur pelts, their quiet breaths rising and falling like waves. The flicker of the fire plays gently across the ceiling beams, blackened, smoothed by generations of smoke. You tended the last few embers, nudging the coals into a tight pile and placing a few carefully chosen peat bricks nearby to feed the fire slowly through the night. It will smolder steadily, giving just enough heat to keep the chill from the room, while not letting the smoke grow too thick. You set to smooth river stones near the hearth's edge, letting them warm through. In a little while, you'll tuck them beneath the sleeping furs, small luxuries that make the cold nights bearable. Outside the smoke hole, the stars are scattered thick and bright, more than you can count, a slow spinning canopy above the fjord. A hush lies over the valley, a blanket of stillness broken only by the occasional creak of timber or the soft murmur of sheep shifting in the byre. No wind now, no snow, only stillness. You step outside one last time, wrapping your cloak tightly around your shoulders. The cold bites at your cheeks, but the silence draws you out. You walk a few steps beyond the longhouse, your boots crunching faintly on the frost-hardened earth. Above you, the aurora begins to stir. First, as a faint pale ribbon, then growing, stretching, a slow river of green light rippling across the sky. You watch, in reverent silence. It feels not of this world, a sign, a mystery, a comfort. For a moment, you think of your cousins who traveled to the west last season, seeking new lands, new fields beyond the sea. You wonder where they sleep now, if they have built their own hearth, if their dreams are filled with light like this. You think of the ancestors who came before, who shaped the land with bare hands, who passed these rhythms to you like tools or songs. You feel them, even now, in the stone beneath your feet, in the cold air you breathe, in the slow pulse of your own heart. Back inside, the warmth welcomes you again. You remove your cloak and move quietly across the packed earth floor, careful not to disturb the others. The room is filled with soft sounds, a child shifting in sleep, the low murmur of someone dreaming, the pop of a log settling in the fire. You retrieve the now warm stones and nestle them beneath your furs before slipping under the covers. The blanket is heavy and familiar, its scent a mix of lanolin and smoke. You close your eyes and let your breathing match the pace of the quiet around you. Slow, even, deep. The smells of peat smoke and wool surround you. The faint warmth from the fire brushes your face. A gentle pressure of fur wraps around your shoulders. You are safe here, held by wood and earth, by fire and kin, by time. In your mind, you drift through the fields, over the fjord, beyond the hilltops. You see your sheep grazing on summer grass. You see your children chasing one another near the stream in spring. You seize the longhouse in all seasons, green-roofed in summer, snow-laced in winter, always humming with life. You hear the echo of stories told, songs hummed, grain ground, boats carved, runes whispered. The flicker of the northern lights lingers behind your eyes as you begin to slip into sleep. You do not resist. The day is done. The world is still. And tomorrow, the sun will rise again over the valley, and the rhythm will begin anew. You are warm, You are tired, you are home. And so you rest.